Well, there are pleas for more NDIS accommodation. Up to 5,000 people with a disability living in aged care homes instead of houses. The inappropriate accommodation crisis is prompting calls for mum and dad investors to become involved in NDIS housing. Well, joining me now live here in the Melbourne studio is Yannick Ieko of Apollo Investment. Yannick, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me, Simon.
Quite an interesting thing that NDIS or NDIA housing homes would actually make quite a good investment for mums and dads. Why is that?
Well, the basic is that there is a huge shortage of such accommodation, which is what you look for in any sort of investment in property. You want to make sure that you've got a need and you've got people that need to move in. The second thing is that because those people who are in inappropriate accommodation are costing the government a lot of money, the government has a scheme which is incentivizing investors heavily to invest in those properties. So the rental yield that you can secure is actually amazing.
And it's secure as well because of the government, I guess, plans with NDIS and NDIA.
It's very secure in the sense that, again, you have a lot of people who need those accommodations. Your tenant or the funds for the rent that you receive is paid by the federal government through the agency. So you've got probably the most AAA landlord or person paying you for the rent. You've got a huge shortage, and at the same time, you can achieve a great societal outcome for disabled people.
So who's investing in these sorts of homes at the moment? Is it just the government? And I guess, has it got to a point where the government just isn't keeping pace with the requirements?
Yep.
And, there's got to be some outside-the-box thinking, I guess.
That's right. So they're looking for private investment to fill the gap because the need is so dire and there is such an urgency. So the government had committed to get younger people out of retirement home by 2022. And while they've made progress, they failed to do so. So they said no one under 45 years old was going to be left in retirement villages by the end of 2022. It did not happen. So they need urgently that supply of specialised accommodation. So in return for that, they're offering a lot of money. Retail investors are one part of the equation, and then you've got institutional investors who are very busy in this space. And we're hoping that combined, this will provide the supply that's so much needed.
So how many mum and dad investors would be needed to really fill this shortfall?
Probably in the thousands, I would say. We've got thousands and thousands of people needing homes right now. So if you look at mum and dad being able to produce one or two homes, you would need quite a cohort of those sort of mum and dad investors to fill the gap.
Are there, obviously you're with an investment firm that looks at these sorts of things, but are there risks though for mums and dads getting into this, and what are the risks?
Yes, absolutely. So the risks are centred around supply and oversupply. So while nationally we have a shortage, there has been pockets of supply which have received a lot of homes by virtue of some promoters of more traditional investment property style things where they've just concentrated supply in a few areas. In those areas, you may have vacancy issues because there's been so much supply coming to the market. It's a matter of picking the right location and making sure that their investment is demand-driven. So do we know there is a shortage, which is the vast majority of areas? It's harder to get
around the country.
Yes, it's much harder to get it wrong. To get it right, it's harder to get it wrong than to get it right. However, the usual due diligence should take place in regards to the demand and the supply in any particular area.
So if you take Melbourne or Sydney, for instance, I guess where would you like to see the investors from those two cap cities invest in? Or I'm sure it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, that's right.
But where should they be investing? What projects are requiring these sorts of investments now?
Look, you have an extreme need at the moment in Tasmania. Regional cities in Victoria and across the country are seeing very little supply. It is quite a specialised build.
But is there a point where these projects aren't getting up unless they have this type of investment?
Oh yeah, it's right now. There is a need. There is a capacity to produce those dwellings for disabled people, and what's missing are the capital and the investors to make it sort of take place. So it's a difficult situation where we're trying to find as many people to come and help. They're helping the disabled people, they're helping themselves because the financial outcomes can be extremely rewarding, and it's the ultimate win-win. At the same time, and that's rather counterintuitive, but they're actually saving the NDIS budget because once those people
better off for the taxpayers.
Absolutely. So the taxpayer is winning as well. because those people in the not appropriate accommodation, be it a hospital or a retirement home, are costing the system a lot more.
Are there enough signals out of the federal government to promote this at all? Do they want?
I think they do. So the want is there, the incentive is there. I think they're not great at marketing, so the word's not getting out the way it should. And some people are putting the word out in the wrong way, so it's been picked up by the usual sort of crowd of people who promote some schemes possibly in the wrong way. So it's about getting the message out and getting it out in the right way. So there's still a lot of work to be done on that front, but I think the intent from the government is very strong because they're very committed and what they're putting forward to those investors is incredibly attractive.